for having me, everybody. Here in just a minute, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get this presentation underway. Let's get this going. Okay. All right. Jolie, now that I'm sharing, I don't see anything but my own screen. So if there's any good questions that you think come up in the chat, feel free to interrupt me at whenever it seems like a good time. And I'll just get going. So yeah, I'm Max Duggins, outdoor recreation specialist at Mecklenburg County Park and Rec. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means later, and let's jump right in. Cool. So in broad strokes, what we're going to discuss today, who are we, as in our organization, Mecklenburg County Park and Rec? What is outdoor rec programming? What changed in OR programming in 2020, along with what stayed the same, and some long-term effects that we sort of expect to see over the next couple of years. All right, so who are we? I'm going to go into this and kind of what may seem like too much depth, but it'll become important later on. So I work for the Mecklenburg County government, which for those of you maybe not familiar with North Carolina is basically Charlotte with a little bit extra around the edges. The county government has 7,900 or more employees serving over 1 million residents across 24-ish departments. Within the county government, we are part of the Park and Rec department. We've got over 660 employees currently, over 21,000 acres of protected land, over 210 facilities. And this pie graph that you can see over here, if the entire circle is the Mecklenburg County government, each little wedge that's going to come in is going to represent that portion of the whole government. So Park and Rec, as a function of number of employees, is what these like wedges are going to be. So Park and Rec here, 660 out of 7,900. Within Park and Rec department, we are part of the Nature Preserves and Natural Resources Division. About 74 employees managing 7,600 acres of nature preserve, and you can see yet another small section of the wedge come in. Within the division, I'm a part of the nature centers, who employ about 37 people, give or take, depending on the season, across 4 nature centers. You can see our smallest wedge yet. And then finally, our outdoor rec team, a wedge so small, I can't even see it. It's there's a yellow line in there. When everybody is on board and hired, we've got 6 outdoor rec specialists. And yeah, that's me. So why did I do all this? This is to show you, everybody where we sort of fit in this outdoor rec scheme, right? We're a small cog in a big wheel. Yeah. All right. So what is outdoor rec programming? I'm gonna kind of delineate our OR programming from a lot of the larger aspects of outdoor recreation in general. For the most part, when we're talking about programming, I'm not talking about like outdoor rec trends of individuals just going out and recreating on their own. I'm not really talking about like outdoor gear sales, land management. Those are big parts of outdoor rec. But for programming, we're thinking about the interpreters, the folks like myself and the other 5 outdoor rec specialists here who provide programs for the public. We're talking about individual instructors, let's say like kayak instructors or private outfitters and guide services, the people that, provide personalized service to users really. All right, so outdoor rec programming, I kind of had to come up with our own definition for OR programming, but I think I've gotten it to a good place. We're going to say, at least for today, that OR programming is a subfield of outdoor education, which in general, just experiential learning in, for, or about the outdoors that draws from adventure education, the promotion of learning through adventure-centered experiences, and draws from the subfield of environmental education. And I'm sure I don't need to explain to everyone here what environmental education is. So drawing from those two, we're going to get outdoor rec programming, which is really the facilitation of meaningful experiences through the instruction and practice of outdoor recreation activities, so, like hiking, biking, camping, running, paddling, all that good stuff here. Sorry, I don't know if you can see these notifications. So that's what we're calling outdoor rec programming. When we wrote the mission statement for our outdoor rec team, we came up with something that I find myself referencing all the time. We came up with enhancing community wellness through healthy lifestyle opportunities, self-confidence, and increased comfort in the outdoors. Or in short, helping people have fun outside. When somebody asks what I do for a living that has, they have no idea, I say, I get to take people outside to have fun. That's, in short, that's it. So how is OR beneficial? Again, with this crowd, I'm sure I don't need to go into too much detail here. We all know why it's good for people to go outside. You get exercise, stress relief, mental resilience, self-confidence, healthy lifestyle options, a sense of community when you're recreating with other people, a sense of place for the places that we love and enjoy and we love to go. There is an article that I found really cool that I've started here with that mental resilience, and it is specifically referencing outdoor activity during the pandemic with teens. And I can, if Jolie can do it, I'd love to be able to share that article with you. She'll put a link into the chat. I hope that has a link to an article where I saw it, and then that should have a link to the actual the study that was done right here in NC State University. Boom. I put this one in here again because it seems like, especially within interpretation, there's a little bit more of a focus on environmental education. So how does outdoor rec differ from environmental education? I got it down to maybe three big ones. One is often our program goals. For outdoor rec programming, the focus is often on developing technical skills with one particular discipline, maybe kayaking or mountain biking or rock climbing or something like that. The program goals for a particular program may be personal growth, teamwork, or even just to get out and do exercise. The resource that we're using, it may be a natural setting like here where we're located in Ladda Nature Preserve, or some piece of equipment like a high ropes course, but it may play a secondary role in the program's goals, as opposed to, I'm thinking kind of your traditional environmental education where the resource we're interpreting stream equality, where the focus of the program and the goal is on the resource and how we can learn about it, how we can share it, how we can protect it. Sometimes our resource is just a way to get people out of their own heads and facilitate the goal that we have for that program. The third thing that I've chosen to highlight here is the organizations that provide outdoor rec programs are more often than for EE. We've got some more private companies, guide services, independent instructors that do outdoor rec programming than would typically do environmental education. I know there are some, for-profit or private organizations and instructors that do environmental ed. For the most part, those tend to be your nonprofits, your government organizations, your state parks and that sort of thing. And again, that's going to kind of come up. That's going to come up a little bit later. Cool. So what changes did we see in 2020 in outdoor rec programming, and what stayed the same as always? As I've been kind of going through this, it sort of struck me that yes, there were some changes, but maybe more than some of the other fields, some of the other just professions even, a lot about outdoor rec programming kind of stayed the same as it always has been. And rather than report just on what our organization experienced, I figured, we need some input from the rest of the community here. So with the help of Liz Morrell, who's also with Mecklenburg County Park and Rec in analytics, she and I created a survey that we sent out to as many organizations as we could get that provide outdoor rec programming in the kind of like southeast, mainly around Charlotte, Mecklenburg County area. So I sent it to, any contacts we had in other park and rec departments that provide OR, some private instructors, adventure guides, even some just outdoor meetup organizers, to see what their experiences were. And as with as with anything, the answer, what changes did we see? It depends. It depends. So we're going to go through some categories that we had in the survey. We asked about changes regarding their program types, logistics, goals, audience, program numbers from the past couple of years, and their program staff training, as well as what worked well in 2020. What, if any, aspects of outdoor rec do they feel inherently comply with COVID-19 precautions? And what long-term effects do we expect to see? All right, so we'll get into it here. So program type. We're talking virtual versus in-person, a self-guided versus instructor-led, community events, private lessons, that sort of thing. That's kind of what we mean by program type. Overall, what changed? Pretty much everybody said they added some virtual component to their outdoor rec programming. That was the big one. Everybody added virtual. No community events, seems obvious. Some more private lessons happened. What stayed the same? Again, pretty much everybody eventually, after maybe some period of figuring things out, really started offering experience-based in-person programs. That's kind of a big key part of it, is everybody got back to those in-person programs eventually. And again, to what capacity sort of depends. We'll talk about that later. Program logistics. This is the category that saw the largest impact in outdoor rec programming. Again, some of the obvious ones: reduced maximum group size, no participant transportation. For a lot of people, that was kind of a big one to figure out how they're going to work their way around, being able to get people in shuttles and buses and things. No overnights. Cleaning procedures got ramped up. Registration went fully online. I saw a lot of people said that. Social distancing added some logistics, something to really consider. For example, stand-up paddleboard rescues. That's something that kind of from my own experience, I can talk about. In your traditional stand-up paddleboard rescue, there is kind of a component of if you have an incapacitated paddler, somebody that's maybe gone unresponsive on the water, there's a way to get them back on the paddleboard that traditionally involves just grabbing them by the straps on their life jacket and then pulling them right up onto the board. But to do that, you're right in their face. You're right up in their space. And it's not necessarily the safest thing to have a mask on the water. So there were some folks in that world, that ACA stand-up paddleboard instruction and education world, came up with some clever ways to get around it. And they came up with a rescue that actually worked without having to get right up in your face. And of course, masks, just like everything else. What stayed the same? This is the one where, like I said, everybody reported the biggest changes they had to make were right here in program logistics, just the day-to-day nitty-gritty details of their programming. Program goals, what changed? Not much, right? Whether your program goals were to facilitate emotional connections or mastery of a new skill, pretty much everybody's program goals stayed the same as they've always been, which I kind of expect that, really. Program audience. I wanted to know, was there a consistent change in the audience that we saw? Everybody expected that we would see some new users. We would see some people that were coming out that are maybe a little bit more cautious and were staying home. And what was reported was wildly different based on who you are, your organization, and everything like that. So everyone had some changes in their program audience to report, but there was no consistent change. Some folks said they stopped doing all senior programs. Some folks said they only did senior programs. Some folks said they saw a younger audience coming in. Some folks said they had more people of color come into their program. Some people said they had fewer. So it again just depends. There was no consistent change. I still wanted to know what stayed the same, and what we got is, people still want to be out. There is still an audience that wants to come out for outdoor rec programming. What changed in staff training? There were some changes. More online trainings, obviously. No travel to trainings. For some things we'd have to maybe travel outside the county to go to certifications and trainings. We had some lapsed certifications because of those restrictions. But along with the lapsed certifications, we saw a lot of certification extensions. So for instance, if you have a NOLS wilderness first aid or wilderness first responder, they've added a year to your sort of grace period. So that should give us some time to be able to keep everybody up to date on that. Also saw, because of like reduced staff or furloughs, that necessitated some more cross training to get people trained on doing programs that they weren't already doing. What stayed the same? The requirements, really. Just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean you can, relax on your requirements when you're doing some inherently risky activities. Again, like high ropes courses or rock climbing, wilderness trips. The expectations and safety requirements stayed exactly the same. Oh, and staff, we still want to go to trainings. We still enjoy that sort of thing. Okay, so what worked well in 2020? Programmers reported that it really helped to stop and sort of reevaluate their priorities. Kind of ask themselves, what goals am I trying to accomplish? Realistically, what can we get done? And what changes do we need to make it happen? What changes can we make to make it happen? Are we going to stay loyal to the goals of a particular program the way we had been doing them and adjust the logistics to fit within our new guidelines? Or are we going to focus on the audience that we have and their changing needs to dictate program offerings? We're going to offer things that, the audience that we finally suddenly find ourselves with, what they want. Or are we trying to stay true to an organization's greater mission, which in some cases, especially for those larger organizations, the greater mission is the well-being of the community as a whole, and sometimes means we're just gonna stop everything and try to keep people, just keep people safe and inside. I pulled a few quotes from our responses in this one that I really liked, because I think they really captured the sort of the feeling in general that we got about what worked well in 2020. Adapt, right? Don't plan things the same old way and hope for the best. That just caused frustration and led to cancellations. I can absolutely identify with that. Another quote that really fit something that we heard a lot of was, don't try to rebrand an existing in-person program as virtual. Instead, they created new events so the expectations weren't that of the traditional program. I'm trying to think about, how can we do a virtual hike? I don't know. To me, it just doesn't make sense. So creating something totally new as a virtual program with different goals, different expectations, you're going to get a lot more success than if you try to take something that you already do and people are accustomed to, they know what they enjoy about it, and you try to make that virtual, it's probably not going to work. So what, if any, aspects of outdoor rec programming are inherently compliant with COVID-19 precautions? I threw all the responses that we got into a word cloud here to show, obviously, the one word that came up: outdoors. most of the things that we do in outdoor rec programming is outdoors. Um, People also said, we already had cleaning procedures in place. They just got expanded, really. They got beefed up. Oftentimes when you're doing something that is physical, personal space is something that is we already talk about as part of the program. So when it's expressed like that, and the activity kind of necessitates touching, it's something that maybe, if we're used to bringing it up, we're used to it being part of the conversation, then it's not such a huge thing to say, hey, while we're out here doing this, be mindful of everybody's personal space. Sometimes gear usage is personalized. Everybody gets their own kayak, everybody gets their own stand-up paddleboard. We can make it so that everybody could get their own tent, their own sleeping bag, that sort of thing. If there is shared equipment, sometimes it just means we just get a little bit more of it. Um, Often you're learning, even if you're in a group setting, a small group setting, some of the learning that's happening is individual, whether that's an instructor coming up and one at a time working with individuals. Um, it doesn't have to be we're all doing something together. Maybe we are together in a small group, but we can space out and everybody learns individually. And then of course the outdoors, everybody, the just about everything is outside. Mhm. All right. So how did we do in 2020? Um, this is where I asked about program numbers. I wanted to know, what was it, a good year or was it a bad year? And this is where I talked about a lot of it depends on your organization. Large organizations, unfortunately, did poorly from a numbers standpoint. Wholesale cancellations, staff furloughs, scrambling to anticipate the community needs, um, constantly changing rules and regulations. I'm going to bring up some numbers from Mecklenburg County Park and Rec later, but I think we're a good example of, maybe what was good for the community as a whole from an outdoor rec and numbers standpoint, just really didn't work. Small organizations, however, um, did rather well. And a lot of this came from phone conversations that I had as part of that survey. They had the autonomy to quickly adopt procedures that capitalize on increased demand for outdoor activities while mitigating the real and perceived risks of their discipline in COVID-19. A lot of them were able to charge more per person for small groups or private lessons. So in the end, they got to do more programs for fewer people and make more money. Boom. So here's some of the numbers. I didn't really get enough numbers to make statistically significant like averages or anything like that. But I picked out one small guide service that gave me really good, accurate numbers, just to kind of show, to kind of illustrate the general feeling that came out of the conversations that I had with them. As we're going through some of these numbers here, um, I want I want us all to keep an eye on the scale bars, right? Because I've got MCPR, which is Mecklenburg County Park and Rec, and then our small business here that gave me some numbers. Um, Keep an eye on those scale bars. So for 2019, Mecklenburg County Park and Rec, these are just outdoor rec programs. We do a lot of environmental ed. Our rec centers do provide a lot of programs, but these are just the outdoor rec programs that we had. In 2019, we held 480 programs, only canceled 69 of them. 2020, if you look at that graph, we canceled about as many as we held in 2020. Our small business here, you can see, he had, let's see, what do they have? So they had more programs for 2020, somewhere in the neighborhood of 60, 60, as opposed to the 50 in 2019, and canceled fewer of them. So held more programs, canceled fewer of them. Mecklenburg County Park and Rec, we held fewer and canceled more. All right, some more numbers here. Our program participants, we had fewer participants, obviously, in 2020. 2019, Mecklenburg County Park and Rec had over 4,000 participants just for our outdoor rec programs. And in 2020, it's a quarter of that, you can see. In fact, let me look at my notes here. We had fewer participants. Yeah. The revenue, again, we had 14%. Yeah, our revenue dropped to just 14% of what it was in 2019. And the numbers for 2018 were about the same for 2019. So for the last couple of years, we had 14% of the revenue. Our small business program participants, they dropped numbers of participants too. However, look at their revenue and look at that scale. The scale for their revenue and our revenue is the same. It's 75,000 up at the top of the scale. So they made more money in 2020 for less participants, right? Fewer programs, fewer participants. No, I said that wrong. More programs for fewer participants for more money. All right. So what are some of the long-term effects that we expect to see in outdoor rec programming over the next couple of years? In short, we see an increased need for leave no trace training, and there's a lot of potential. We're going to go through both of these here. Leave no trace. I put up all 7 of the leave no trace principles here. I'm sure we're all at least somewhat familiar with these, but essentially it's, outdoor ethics to minimize our impact on the environment as we're out enjoying, recreating in the natural world, or even just at home living. Here's a relatively famous photo from Max Patch Mountain near Hot Springs, North Carolina. If you've been there pre-pandemic, maybe on a busy day, you see a couple of tents up at the top there. This is from September 2020, and there are tents everywhere. That place just got completely trashed, just destroyed. A quote from an article that I liked called "Too Much Poop, Too Many People." It's like we've stared into a future that wasn't supposed to arrive for a few decades. The number of people that came out, and many of whom were coming out for the first time, they just didn't really know how to act in the outdoors, how to minimize that impact. And in this article, it specifically talks about this. It's something that we've sort of known was coming. More people are coming out slowly, but when the pandemic hit, it brought that future to now. I think Jolie should have a link to that article too, if you're interested in that. Yeah, for leave no trace, there are a lot of considerations in those 7 principles. They talk about how we can minimize our impact regarding human waste, litter, trail erosion, off-trail hiking, off-road parking, illegal camping, campfires. All those, they happened. And many organizations and advocate groups focus on regulations, permitting, land acquisition, limiting public access, code enforcement, all that. But it all comes down to human behavior, right? Governing bodies can impose well-meaning regulations regarding land usage, but you can't force someone to behave responsibly if they don't know how to behave responsibly. As educators, it's our responsibility to bridge the gap between the needs of the resource and the needs of the user. We can help users build emotional connections to a resource and teach them how to take care of it. These are a couple of online posts, memes that the Arkansas State Parks put up that I thought were great. Here's a good example of how we can use these skills as educators, as interpreters, to reach a lot of people and, tap into that emotion, right? These memes are hilarious. And what, at the heart of it is there's a lot of people out. We're finding a lot of trash. We're finding a lot of human waste where it shouldn't be. How can we educate people? And, pretty simple way is connect with those emotions, make it funny. All right. So we said we've got a lot of potential, right? Here's some facts, some figures that help illustrate that. For last year, bike sales up 63%, paddle sport sales up 56%. I know, we talked about the outdoor gear retail is not necessarily part of outdoor rec programming, but these are good indicators of the new users, of the potential that's going to be out there. All right, more new users means there's going to be more people who are coming out first, second, third time, and they're going to want some instruction on how to do these activities. Park visitation is up too. North Carolina State Park visitation is up 1.2 million from last year. The projected parks visitation for Mecklenburg County for fiscal year 21, which will end in July of 21, projected is to be up 4.3 million for that next year. And I can't see because this is in my way. So that's a 33.6% increase from last year. That's just insane. Up 4 million for just this one county, and the whole state park system went up, 1 million. That's a lot of new people coming out. That leads us to one of the next big points here. Uh-oh, where's my thing? Here we go. So increased interest in the outdoors means, again, more potential if we can do a few things. The Outdoor Industry Association did a study. They commissioned a survey to learn all about the new users to the outdoor activities, not necessarily programming, but just outdoor activities in general, especially with the specific goal to find out how to retain these new users in the coming years. So these next 3 points are taken directly from that study. And again, Jolie, I think she can put that in our chat if you're interested in reading all about that. So a few things they found in that study is to keep it local. Parks and open areas near where people live are a crucial part of the growing participation. The pandemic has shown that there is a demand for close to home outdoor rec opportunities. That was kind of the, when they're asked, what do you want to do? It's stay close to home. So if we can keep it local, make it social. That was another big point that came out of this. A lot of new users' motivation, even existing users' motivation to come out and do these activities was to go out with friends and family. The outdoors were sort of sold as this safe space to come out and actually socialize. And if we can keep this in mind when we're planning our future programs, I think we can really capitalize on a lot of these new users. What did it say? Almost a third of new participants learned about their new activity from friends or family. So that good old fashioned word of mouth, and making your programs, a sort of a social thing, a social gathering, as safe as we can do it in the coming years is really going to help. And finally, to pay attention to their needs, right? Some of the motivations that were at the top of the list: getting exercise, staying healthy, and again, I can't read because of that, but just allowing people to have a safe space to gather and socialize is really what they wanted, right? 40% took up the new activities just to spend time with others. They were tired of being inside by themselves. So what can they do together? Something outside. Let's go for a bike ride. Let's go for a hike. Let's go fishing. If we can keep those in mind, I think we can do pretty well in the coming years.
Next, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Regarding the gear, question is, with more people buying their own gear, are organizations offering programs where participants can bring their own gear? And if people bring their own and educators provide the skill, knowledge, that would be a win-win, especially for budget.
That's a good question. That's a good suggestion. For some of the organizations that I talked to, bringing their own gear is already sort of built into it. So for instance, a mountain bike instructor that I talked to who leads summer camps and instructional, personalized sort of classes and tutorials and races and things, they already bring their own bikes. So that can be a big part of it. I think that's a very good suggestion to keep in mind. If this is something that you and your organization have, the power to control and allow folks to bring out all this new stuff that they have, these new fun toys and gadgets, and maybe don't, they don't know how to use them as well as they could, or even maintain them. I think those are really good ideas for some new activities to do.
I have another question while you were answering that one.
Sure.
You might be going into this next, about retaining the new users.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about that next?
Well, that's kind of what this last slide, I've got some conclusions coming up, but
well, I'll read it for you just in case there's
sure.
something in here that you didn't plan on saying. It says, do you have any idea what the expected retention rate of new users is, or how we can capture these new users into lifelong outdoors people? As life returns to normal in their eyes, I wonder if they will make the time to continue in these activities.
In that report, the sorry, it's kind of hard for me to read my own screen, but in this report that we're talking about right here, there is a section that has numbers on there. I think they specifically asked how many people expect to continue these new activities. And I don't remember what the numbers are, but they're in that report. This report is fantastic. The whole thing is about how, who came out for the first time, or I think they defined a new user as somebody trying activity for the first time, or for the first time in a year or more. So how many new users do we have? What was their motivation for coming out? What specific activity were they doing? And kind of like you said, who expects to continue doing this after COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, and what would help you continue this new activity? And what would help you continue that's where I got these 3 points here. They keep it local. They want it to be close to home. They want it, 40% at least want it to be about a safe space to go do something with their friends and family. And there were a host of motivations that they reference in that report. The quotes that I put up here they were kind of, they gave some good examples. The getting exercise, staying healthy, getting outside. Those were all part of it. So how can we keep those new users? All those will help. And I think a big part of it is listen to your audience, the people that come to you. They have a reason why they come to you and your organization specifically. Talk to them, find out what exactly they want. If they've been coming traditionally for guided hikes, let's say, to identify trees, and now all of a sudden they're thinking less about identifying trees and more just about how can I go out and talk to some people, get in a walk and have a good conversation, then that's something to think about. How could you evolve your programs to sort of fit those changing goals of the audience? So I think, it never hurts to ask. Cool. Is that all you had for questions right now, Julie?
Yep, that's it for now.
Okay. I don't have much else on my slide, so I'll just do again sort of broad stroke conclusions for 2020. The biggest changes we saw were in program logistics. The transportation. Almost everybody said we went fully online registration, enhanced cleaning, no large community events. How did everybody do? Again, it depends. Large organizations did a little bit more poorly. There were some, without calling anybody out, but there were some of the larger like park and rec organizations that just said, yeah, our outdoor rec programming is done. There is no more outdoor rec, program for now, at least. It's gone. Those smaller organizations, I talked to them on the phone, and just the general feeling is, yeah, it was a good year. People wanted to come out, and when I can quickly make those changes that need to be made, to do it safely, they got them out. They did better than ever. Some effects: the increased need for leave no trace training. I said there's more people recreating than ever, and we all need help minimizing our impact, remembering how we can get out and safely recreate, not just for ourselves and each other, but for the environment as a whole. Increased potential for the coming years. We got our gear, retail, and park visitation as good indicators. That study that we talked about, the Outdoor Association study, says there's a lot more people coming out, a lot of beginners, and they're going to be looking for some instruction. They're going to be looking for somebody to teach them how to use that new kayak that they just bought, right? Cool. And that's it. Thank you for coming. Any questions? Gonna stop sharing so I can see everybody. Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks. If there's any questions, feel free to speak up. I can actually see everybody now. I can see the chat.
I have a question. Did you notice when you were talking to the different organizations, were the small organizations you talked to mostly like for-profit or nonprofit versus the large ones were mostly government?
Yeah, the smaller ones were, for-profit, guide services, instructors. The larger ones were more, like you said, government, park and rec systems, university outdoor adventure programs, that sort of thing. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting the blame, so to speak. A big organization like Mecklenburg County, they've got a lot of dependents, really. All those 7,900 employees, the million residents, they have to consider the needs of everybody together. And us 6 employees down here on the outdoor rec team, and in 2019, whatever it was, a little less than $75,000 in revenue is a small drop in the bucket. And if that's, they need to just put everything on hold, make one decision that is best for everybody, then, it needs to happen. It makes sense.
So what's your plan as your manager? I'm asking you now, what's your plan to retain the new users?
Retain the new, we'll talk about it more, but those 3 things, right? So keep it local. We kind of already do that, right? We are tasked with programming this specific nature preserve for the most part. We do some offsite things, but especially now that participant transportation isn't really a thing. Keeping it local, that's kind of what we do. It's what we have to do. Make it social. That's the one that I think we can really think about, we can really focus on, is how can we bring back those community events in a safe way, in a way that people feel comfortable about. And, instead of making something that is a specific topic that is interesting to a few people, a few people are interested in waterfowl, but everybody's interested in getting together with their friends. Everybody's interested in coming out and meeting new people and having a good time around a bonfire or something like that. I think that's something that we can definitely focus on.
Sounds good to me. Looks like Kristen put a question in the chat for you.
I see. Do you personally feel excited to go back to trips and overnights? Are there some things that you'll enjoy keeping from this new style? I am excited about going back to trips and overnights, definitely. We've got a lot of gear that's just kind of collecting dust out there. And also from the user standpoint, well, from the programmer standpoint, it's a lot more fun and interesting to get to go to new places. We get to see this nature preserve every day, and the chance to go out and take people to some more exciting locations is something I always look forward to. But the same thing for them too. There's a lot more potential than just coming out here and seeing the same 4 trails that they've seen every time they come. Are there some things that we'll enjoy keeping from the new style? I think something that is definitely going to stick with me is to keep in mind that there are a lot of folks that come out just to meet some new people, right? If I'm going to do a kayak event, there are some people that are there because they want to learn specific kayak skills. Maybe they bought a kayak a few months ago, they've tried it out, and they've found they are having a hard time doing a 180-degree turn, or a hard time getting in and out without falling in the water. And they want some specific instruction. And there are some people that are there just to come out and see some folks, just to come out, get on the water, enjoy a nice view at sunset, and have a pleasant conversation with somebody that they don't have to look at every single day. So I think I'm going to try to keep that in mind. And I've been asking that specifically before each program. What are your personal goals for being here? And then we can use that to dictate the direction of the program for the next couple hours or whatever that we're going to be out. If everybody says, I really want to see an osprey, then all right, well, let's go try to find where the osprey are. If everybody says, I just want a nice, calm, relaxing, time on the water, then we'll go to see some of the more, beautiful sights and just try to have a nice, peaceful time without the kids, whatever it is, it's going to be.
Thank you so much, Max. I really appreciated your presentation. So folks who are here, don't miss 5 o'clock happy hour this evening. We're going to have a Meet the Board session and our regional meeting. So there'll be some important stuff there. And then we'll have a social at 6. And those are the same room. So I'm just going to kind of roll one into the other. So hopefully you can join us for those. Oh, here, let me unspotlight Max while I'm talking. So hopefully you can join us for those. We'd love to see you. If you missed the beginning of this session and want to go back and watch it again, we're going to post them on our YouTube channel, newly created YouTube channel for this NAI Sunny Southeast. And we'll post a link to that on the Facebook page and the blog. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a great day.